So thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it. And unlike the rest of the team, I'm going to get to Gwen's postscript from her presentation, which is we're going to talk about uranium today and a new opportunity. So Labrador Uranium, we've been trading for, well, exactly 1 week today. This is a very new company. We created this out of consolidated uranium, started that process in July, but we have done what we think we've put together is pretty spectacular. So it really is a district that we have. It's 139,000 hectares over 125 kilometers. This is a district that has been explored since the 1970s. Most of that was for copper. In the last uranium boom, there was tens of millions of dollars spent in this district for uranium, with two significant discoveries, including what is now Paladin's 120 million pound uranium project on the eastern end of this belt. So let me get into the meat of this. As everyone else, we've got lots of disclaimers, but we will be making forward-looking statements. And off we go. So look, we built this company with a very strategic goal, which was, how do you put together an incredible land package with, as was just said recently, lots of shots on goal in an area that's working, that in a commodity that makes a lot of sense with the right team. That to me is always the goal. So how we built this, first and foremost, it is a group of established company builders. It's a small board, but the three key board members have all built companies, made value for their shareholders, and some of us have actually sold companies as well and created those exits for our shareholders. At the top level from board and management, we're very finance and corporation driven. We know how to build companies and establish and build shareholder value. But it's critical, we're an exploration company. I am not your guy to find millions of pounds of uranium. I'm a geological engineer. I'm happy to build projects and companies, but we have built an exceptional geological team, and that's going to become important because it's not just boots on the ground geology that we need at a project like this. With this kind of land package, we need to bring a more modern data-focused approach as well, which I will get into in a second. On top of that, we control what we believe to be Canada's next great uranium region. Again, we have a massive land package. We have on the eastern side of this, based on a known uranium deposit, we start our asset package with a historical uranium resource. So we do have a 20 million pound historical uranium equivalent resource in the ground that we start this company with. And with the work done by some of our partners, including Altius, we've identified over 140 targets on this incredible land package. So frankly, we've actually got to bring that down to something more reasonable. It is a multi-commodity district as well. This has been explored for copper, gold, uranium, and it's been found throughout the belt. And then finally, and again, to hit on Gwen's postscript, sometimes it's really nice to have the wind of a nice market behind you, and uranium is a spectacular place to be. Look, uranium, look at it however you want. It is the only possible choice for baseload energy if you're looking at a carbon neutral future. I have worked in renewable energy. I've worked in mining and finance. I'm a big fan of renewables. However, here in BC, wind, solar, run-of-river hydro, you're only generating electricity 30-35% of the time. You cannot power industry. You cannot power cities with that kind of availability. We're talking batteries, 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 batteries. I think I might have left the battery out from your quote. But the fundamentals to that is, that's great. Those metals will be very important, are very important. But how do you power those batteries? It has to come from your grid. Where's that base load coming from? Your only choice today that has zero emissions is uranium. There's a future probably in hydrogen. There's all sorts of work being done in other sectors. But this is a known commodity and a known developer, and frankly, it's been declared a green energy in places like Europe now. So this is going to only grow. So we've got great tailwinds coming behind us. So just a snapshot, we're sitting at about 50 million shares outstanding. It's 47.7 now. We have another acquisition we're completing, which will bring in another 3 million shares into that capital structure. Insiders own about 6.5% of the company. We're sitting on around $7.5 million in cash. We financed this last year. So even before we were officially a company, we raised $2 million and spent $1 million on the ground just to test out some of what we have. Our job now is to take that somewhere new. We've got a great shareholder base of the financing we did. About 2/3 of that were long uranium funds, very large institutions. Altius Minerals, which a lot of you guys know, they put the main land package together. They will own about 16-17% of the company. So we're in a very good place to start and grow this thing. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I'll point to two things. First, we do have a very strong board. So Phil Williams, who was the founder and CEO of Consolidated Uranium, will be our executive chairman. Richard Patricio, if any of you do look at uranium, he is the CEO of Mega Uranium. They've both been in this space for over 15 years. They know the industry. They've been consolidating assets and growing them over the last decade. And then the last guy that we brought to the board was Justin Reed. Any gold bugs out there, Justin is the CEO of Troilus Gold, and he and I actually ran companies in Brazil at the same time looking at fertilizers. But most importantly here, we have built a great geological team. And I'm not going to point at all of them, but I will point at Paul Pearson and Drew Heisman here for one specific reason is with this kind of land package and 50 years of data, you've got to figure out how you're going to come up with hard targets. There again, when Altius did their first pass, they generated 146 targets. How do you turn that into something that we can explore? So we're going to use a modern data-focused approach. So although we are ready to go and drill around one of our main assets and grow a historical resource, at the same time, we want to come up with hard targets. So we are building our own machine learning AI process. Both Paul and Drew have been very successful at this. Paul and his team won the Gawler Prize several years ago. Again, massive areas of Australia up in the west there, lots of historical data. How do you turn that into real targets? That's what he and his team have done. And Drew has done the same thing here in Canada. He's up for an award at this year's PDAC for having built something out. We need to get down to these real assets. And this is why. We have this dominant land position in the Central Mineral Belt. So it's 139,000 hectares over 125 kilometers. Every one of those black dots is a known uranium occurrence. So that's very exciting, but we've got to turn this into mines. So rather than just poking away at the surface, lots of guys have been in here. Millions of dollars have been spent, but very little of that has gone deep. Very little of that has gone to try to prove something out. And that is our job right now. But happily, as we look at these big targets and go elephant hunting, we know it's there. So Michelin deposit, 120 million pounds right now owned by Paladin. Our Morin Lake starts at a 20 million pound historical resource. So we can grow from that. I'm going to show you. I think we're going to ignore this slide because of time, but every one of those white rectangles is a uranium occurrence. So this is where it gets exciting. So that's our land package. Every one of those green dots is a known uranium occurrence, but every one of those red dots is a known copper occurrence. When the Altius guys put this land package together, their first targets were all around large IOCGs. They're not looking for something small in here. We're not looking for something small in here. So as we apply this modern data-focused approach, and as we look at these decades of historical data, the goal is to come up with what are those targets that are going to generate the billion-dollar deposit. That's what we're trying to find. But we have, there's a lot of juice in this system. There's all sorts of mineralization in this system. Something to realize for the more geological of you is this is where this area has had 4 different orogenic events. So 4 geological provinces have come together. That has given us a few things. First, that's where a lot of that copper and gold has come from the fluids. And secondly, it's that structure that came in there is where we can trap the uranium, because to get uranium, you need to trap it somewhere because it does like to disappear on you. So we're going to grow from here. So we've got this massive amount of land that we're going to go elephant hunting and narrow that down to the most attractive, big, exciting targets. At the same time, Morin Lake starts at a 20 million pound historical resource. There's all sorts of targets around. If you remember the map before, everything north and east of that had all sorts of uranium and copper that is hitting there. So our job is to get in there, put some drill holes. How big does this grow? When Aurora Energy started with building out their Michelin deposit, they started at 30 million pounds. Their second largest shareholder was Altius Minerals, so not dissimilar. And every year they would add pound after pound. That thing got to $1.3 billion in the last uranium boom. They sold it to Paladin for $260 million at a time where there was actually a uranium moratorium in the province. So we know there's mineral here. We know there's opportunity here. And we have many, many ways to deliver. And then on top of that, the final piece of the pie is we've got this other asset. So down by Michelin and all that red in there, there's a Central Mineral Belt. That's the guts of what we're doing. Altius made this new discovery, which is now ours, called the Talk-1-On. Very different beast. So down here in the south, high tonnage, lower grade, okay? You're going to get grades more like what you see in the operating mines in places like Namibia or Kazakhstan. But up here in the north, when the guys went in the first time, we didn't show that slide, but we have a slide that shows they found 22 occurrences of uranium with grab samples of up to 3.5% uranium, U3O8. We don't know what's underground there, but we do know there's a lot of smoke in the system. There's a lot of uranium in the system. It looks much more like your basement-style deposits that you see in places like Saskatchewan. So that's where we're going to get extra sing. So we think there's large, large deposits in the south. This could be more amenable to something that's higher grade and similar to what we see elsewhere that could provide some of that pop. So look, we've taken this from desktop studies, we're processing the data, we're building out the machine learning program that is in process now to come up with hard targets, all moving towards getting into the field this summer and winter, starting some drilling and growing out the resources. But it's an earlier stage company, but it's not too early in that we actually start with a historical in-ground resource. So it's a district scale opportunity, well-known commodity belt. We start with the historic base. We really believe we have an exceptional team both to guide people like me in management and not do stupid things and to protect your money, to make the appropriate investment. We've got an exceptional geological team that can deal with both the machine learning and have that history so we can come up with hard targets. And we've got a great exploration team that will then hopefully turn that into pounds in the ground. So with that, I will turn it over to you. But it's a great opportunity, and we're just brand new. We're just starting.